industry focus. So welcome. We're going to go through everything fairly quickly today. We'll spend about 30 minutes and we'll leave lots of time at the end for questions. So if you do have questions throughout, feel free to use the chat tool. We will do our best to answer those in real time. And like I said, we'll leave a bunch of time at the very end to answer questions. So if you're here today, I presume it's probably for one of three scenarios. So you have a buyer that is interested in a Bōde listing. The second scenario where I think you'll have interest in our model is if you have a listing currently and you've been approached by a buyer through Bōde, either they've inquired with a question, potentially made an offer on your property, or requested a viewing. And the third might just simply be that you have a general curiosity about our business model and the way we operate. So I think the easiest thing to do will be I'll just share my screen. And I think what we'll do is just cover the first scenario where you have a buyer interested in a Bōde listing. So Rob, can you let me know you can see the screen there?
Yes, sir. Looks good.
Perfect. Cool. Hopefully my internet is solid. I moved to a new house a couple of days ago and I have fantastic TELUS fiber optic internet that loves to drop out about every 15 minutes. So hopefully this works. So first scenario, you have a buyer that's interested in a Bōde listing. So, you know, as an agent, you know, the first question is often, how do I get paid? How am I compensated for my services? So when it comes to commissions, we leave the decision in the hands of our homeowners. So our sellers are free to, as part of the listing process, determine what amount of commission, if any commission, they like to offer to buy-side agents. So in the overwhelming majority of cases and listings that we currently have in inventory, the sellers do offer a commission. Sometimes that amount is what we find to be very typical, 3.5% on the first 100,000 and 1.5% on the balance. Sometimes it's not what we would consider a full commission. It might be a flat fee. We work with a lot of builders that offer a flat rate of say $4,000, $5,000. And then there's other scenarios where a seller is not offering a commission, and sometimes that can be a function of their motivation to sell. Really, we don't know. It can also be a function of the equity they have in their home, and they simply aren't offering that commission. So if they are offering a commission, our office will put that in the commission field, as you all know, and pay it out much as is industry standard. So the same way. If you look at the second note here, buyer brokerage agreements apply. So as you all know, buyer brokerage agreements became mandated, I believe, in 2018 at some time. So you do need to have your buyers under a written agreement, and those are really important because they're going to outline the relationship that you have with your buyer and also the type of property that you will present to your buyer. So in that agreement, it's very important that you outline which properties you're going to show to your buyers and what will happen in the event that your buyer is interested in a property that is not offering a commission. In most cases like that, you may be able to be compensated directly by your buyer in those situations. The third tab here, showings and offers are easy. So I'm actually going to show you just real quickly a snippet of our platform. So this is our search page, and you can see all the listings that are listed on realtor.ca throughout Calgary. If you hit this box, it will show the actual Bōde listings. And if we navigate to one of these, it looks a lot like any other listing page. I mean, probably not unlike what you have on your personal website or your brokerage website, or even realtor.ca. You know, you have the price, the beds, the baths, all the property details. What's different here is these three buttons. So the first one is book a viewing, and that will take you directly to this process, which is a bit like the open table experience. If you've ever reserved a table, a restaurant table when we were able to visit restaurants back in the day. So it's much like the same experience. You can select a 15, 30-minute time frame or a 1-hour viewing. And next you see the list of available times. So most of our sellers offer a very wide range, typically 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. for viewings. In this particular scenario, again, we put our sellers in full control. So this particular seller is only offering viewings on Sunday and Monday coming up. And that could be for any number of reasons. It might be because of young children. It might be because they have company, but we put them in control of really determining when you can schedule viewings. So in that way, our experience is very similar to Airbnb if you've ever booked a room on that platform. And then finally, the ask a question. So again, what's different here is that when you ask a question on a Bōde listing, it is received directly by the seller. So it's not coming to myself. Our office does not have agents in the traditional sense. It goes directly to the seller of the listing. So on these, you can see it's a little bit like, again, like Airbnb or AutoTrader. It's not meant to be an instant messaging tool. It's more designed so that buyers would expect a response in, say, an hour or two, but not instantaneously. So that second scenario that we talked about was when you have a listing and you are approached by a Bōde buyer. So I think the most important thing to remember is that a Bōde buyer has chosen to be unrepresented. They do not have buyer representation. And the thing that I've been discussing with most agents, and the way that I can most easily explain your interaction with that person, would be the exact same way that you interact with someone when you get an inquiry through realtor.ca. So we all have received those emails where through realtor.ca, someone says, A, I have a question about this property, or B, I'd like to request a viewing. So whatever your protocol in that scenario, when you get a lead through our marketplace, it's best to treat it much the same way that you would a lead through realtor.ca. How's everything going, Rob? Is there much for chat questions? I'm going to address questions here shortly, but anything that I should address so far?
I think you're doing great.
All right, sounds good. So we absolutely look forward to working with agents. I think when we first launched, there was this idea that we were out to eliminate agents, and that's absolutely not the case. We are very much working towards giving consumers more options, but we have and we continue to work with agents throughout the province. We are a licensed brokerage. We abide by all the rules and regulations. We are in contact with the real estate boards in which we're members across Alberta. Obviously, we're in contact with the Canadian Real Estate Association and also RECA. We've met with them since inception several times, and we are audited much the same way that all other brokerages are audited. Of course, our trust account is scrutinized much the same way that all other brokerages are.
And Jeff, maybe you want to clarify what a mere listing provider's obligations are, and how that correlates to our model in terms of advice and consultancy, and how we're limited and have to adhere to the rules of mere listings.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Rob. So as defined by the Canadian Real Estate Association, we provide mere posting services. That might seem like it's something new, but it's really not. Mere postings have been around ever since September 2010, so almost 10 years now. It was the result of an investigation by the Competition Bureau, and in 2010, the Competition Bureau and the Canadian Real Estate Association signed a consent agreement. And the essence of that agreement was the requirement that the Canadian Real Estate Association amend its rules to require member real estate boards across Canada to allow realtors to offer mere posting services. So it's been around for 10 years. We've seen businesses in this space. In essence, when a seller hires us to market their property, as the name suggests, we are merely posting it on their behalf. That doesn't mean that we don't do our due diligence. We absolutely take responsibility for the information that we post to the local boards, but we do not represent these sellers. So we do not provide advice to these sellers, and we cannot speak on their behalf. So we give them all the tools to market their property, and we go ahead to digitally advertise their property as well. But we don't actually stand in between them and represent their interests in the fiduciary sense that an agent typically would.
I think that's well said. And to be specific, our relationship with them is as a customer, whereas the typical agent consultancy relationship is as a client. So we have, by the definition of those words, we strictly adhere to our obligations, and that also aligns with our business model, which is we know we're not designed to provide that kind of advice to buyers and sellers. There's lots of great agents out there with lots of experience to do that. Our whole approach is to provide them the tools, the data that they need, and the empowerment that they need where they choose to do it themselves, to empower them to do it themselves. So this is, as Jeff mentioned, this is never born out of the idea that, the passion behind this company doesn't come from a place of trying to replace agents. That's not at all our path. In fact, we work with them all the time, and we have plans to work even more closely with them in the future, which Jeff will get into. But we know agents aren't going anywhere, and there's a lot of value that they bring to the table. So we're just an alternative solution to the consumer market for those that feel confident that they could do it themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And that client customer designation, everyone on the call will resonate with them, and it's a very important distinction. So as Rob mentioned, we do work with a lot of agents, and we are in conversations with a lot of brokerages across Alberta who have been drawn to our technology and our platform. And I think it's those conversations are going really, really well. I think back to my days as an agent and a broker. When I left my last brokerage, we had about 35 agents, and I would watch the success of agents, and they would start to get busier and busier. And it was, I don't know what it was. It was usually around, I'd say, 35 to 45 deals a year. That as soon as an agent kind of hit that threshold, it became very hard for them to manage their business on their own, and they would start to look at hiring an assistant. And I was in that for my last few years, was kind of in that world where I was pretty flat out and in need of help. And when I think about the administrative burden that agents have currently, whether that's spending your evenings and weekends scheduling showings, making sure that all of your paperwork is in order, and I know everyone on this call knows there's a lot of paperwork, whether it's consumer relationships guides or disclosure documents or dower or your purchase contracts. There's a lot of administrative work as being part of an agent. And, I used to, I won't say hate, but I strongly dislike that aspect of the business. What I loved was my time in front of the customers and, my time driving neighborhoods with out of town buyers. And when I think about the marketplace that we've created and the tools that we will ultimately make available to agents, it really would have freed up a lot of my time to do more deals and to provide better and higher quality service to my clients, because ultimately my value is not in filling out a DocuSign contract. It wasn't in negotiating, TV stands after the fact of selling a property. My value was local market knowledge and disseminating and really analyzing the sales statistics. And I think that if we can get to this place where agents are free to do more of that type of work, it's really going to elevate the industry. With that, I'll stop sharing my screen, and we've got about 10 minutes, which is kind of what we had planned. If there are any questions, if not, anyone, please feel free to reach out to me at any time, jeff@bodcanada.com. Rob, any questions?
Seems like we've covered everything that was raised. So
my inbox will blow up after this, but
no, I think that was well said, and certainly represents the views of the business. And Jeff's got a great reputation for a reason, and great to work with as well. So looking forward to further discussions and further explorations of how we'll work together in the future, and making sure that it's as smooth as possible in the meantime.
Great. Okay, thanks for attending, Rob. Thanks for your help. Thanks everyone for attending, and feel free to reach out to me anytime, jeff@bodecanada.com.